first question I have for you is, how did you get into the stunt industry?
Well, it's kind of crazy to hear my story because it relates to Nick. But basically, I was 7 years old, and I used to hang out at car washes because I loved cars, man. I loved hot rods. Back in the '70s, it's all that would come in the car wash. So one day, this crashed up car comes in on a trailer, and the guy was just like Burt Reynolds coming out of a car. I mean, it was an amazing man. So I rode my bike up to him, and I said, "Sir, what happened to your car?" He goes, "This ain't a car. It's a. She's an actress. Her name's Eleanor." He goes, "I just directed and produced it and starred in a movie called Gone in 60 Seconds." And I said, "Wow." He goes, "Yeah, it's in theaters now." He goes, and then I said, "Well, I want to do what you do." And he goes, "Well, I'll tell you what, if you train," and we sat for about an hour, and he told me what to do when I was 7. And he says, "You come and see me when you're 18, and I'll definitely help you." And I said, "Okay." So I started training that day and worked my butt off. I kept in contact with them. And then I was 18. I got in my car to move to LA to become a stuntman. And on the way there, he was doing Gone in 60 Seconds Part 2, and he died doing the film. He did a chase scene, and a tower cable snapped and sliced him in half pretty much. And I thought, oh shit, man, I finally had my way in, and now I don't have no family. So I stayed there and kicked ass. And the funny thing is, about 8 years later, I became a stunt coordinator, and I was ready to move on to producing. And right before I did, I got a call from Jerry Bruckheimer to see if I wanted to coordinate one more movie, and it was called Gone in 60 Seconds. So it was like a full circle for me.
One of your credits, it's on down on your list, and it caught my eye because the whole resume caught my eye. Not gonna lie, but Terminator 2,
Uh,
even though it's uncredited, what was your role in that?
I played a cop in there and a few other stunt things, like when he was jumping out the window. Arnold shot us a few times, and so that to me was like my biggest film at the time, just as I was starting. So it was quite an honor, and I probably got kicked off that set like 5 times because even when I wasn't working, now that I had the ability to get on that set, I snuck on anytime I could to watch, the director and Arnold work so I could learn as much as I can. So it was quite the experience. They hated me at the end of the day because I wouldn't leave the set, but it was a great experience for me.
And then another film caught my eye was Pentathlon, starring Dolph Lundgren. What was it
Yeah,
like working with Dolph? Because that's basically early you and early Dolph.
yeah. Yeah, well, the funny thing is, here that movie there, it was a proving point for me as far as a stuntman. A lot of the stunt guys were falling, and Dolph was complaining that all the stunt guys just looked like they're flopping on the ground, and they look like stuntmen. So I overheard him, and so when I got ready to do my thing, I did this crazy half flip and on my head and on concrete, and I freaking knocked myself out pretty much. But I just wanted to shock him, and sure enough, I got 3 more days because of that. So
Well, you impressed Dolph. That's an achievement,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah,
Um, so when you're going onto a movie, whether it be action, horror, comedy, because you're involved in every genre,
yeah.
um, does the genre affect the stunt? If you get what I mean, like if you're in a horror and you have to fall out of a window, whereas if you're in an action movie, falling out of a window, would you do it different for each genre?
Uh, really, it's each character than it is about the genre. I mean, when I come to a set, and it's sad because a lot of some people don't think this far in advance. They think that, if you get hit by a car, okay, let's do it. Where to me, I used to get in more trouble in my career as a stuntman because I'd say, "Can I please read the script? Can you tell me if this character is soft? Is he athletic? Is he strong? Is he weak in this moment? I mean, what's the pivotal point in his character?" And they'd say, "Just do the freaking stunt, Johnny." And I'm like, "You don't understand. I mean, if I'm going out this window, I got to know if this guy's going to land like a sack of potatoes, or is he going to bounce out like an athlete. And that probably was my worst thing I got in trouble with, as a stuntman, because I just wanted to dig deeper into the character. Because to me, as a stuntman, you have to be as good as actor as he is, because you have to now double him. The way he walks, I'd follow my actors wherever they went, even though I wasn't supposed to leave my trailer. I'd follow him just so I could figure out how to walk like him, so I didn't stand out. I mean, the key to a stuntman is not to be seen.
Yeah, I suppose. And if you don't want to be seen, you have to become that actor, so to speak.
Yeah.
So the first Nick Cage question.
Ah,
Getting you.
yes. Bring it.
So you've done the stunts for The Rock, starring Sean Connery and Nick Cage. So you got
Yeah.
Sean Connery and you got Nick Cage. But what was it like directing or doing the stunts for a Michael Bay movie? There must have been so much pressure because a Michael Bay movie is basically a stunt in itself.
Yeah, well, I mean that was my first time I met Nick because I didn't start coordinating and second unit directing him till after that, and so that was my first real introduction to Nick. And it's funny, he gave me the time of day almost immediately. Of course, Michael Bay didn't like that. He didn't like anyone that had anything to do with anyone, and basically it was hard because in this big business to risk your life as a stuntman, you should be able to be to be treated like someone that's a filmmaker, and that's the biggest problem with stuntmen. And Michael Bay was one of those guys that was there to give me a pat on the back or to even want to even see what I look like. And I couldn't ask him any questions, and it was discouraging because I'm a real big Michael Bay fan. And as a movie, I love all his movies. I think commerciality, him and Tony Scott have just just made this industry so much more exciting. They made dramas into action movies that are still read like dramas in the scripts. And I just praise him for that. But to find out that I couldn't be a part of the process was really disheartening.
That is disheartening, especially as you said, you really enjoy his movies and stuff, and he couldn't give you the time of day.
Yeah,
kicking the nads, isn't it?
Oh, you believe me, there's a few of us that wanted to pull him around the corner. But on the turnaround, I think he's a genius of a filmmaker, and I wish him the best because I want to keep watching his movies.
You also done a very, very popular disaster film, Dante's Peak.
Dante's, yeah.
How do you go about doing stunts for a movie like that? Because I'm sure you're not getting chased by like the pyroclastic flow. So how do you get yourself into the mindset to do stunts for basically a big special effects disaster movie?
Well, as a kid, I knew I'd be good at this role in my career because I was a big daydreamer. I mean, I could be by myself for hours and just daydream a whole story and create it in my head. And to me, that's what made me a great stuntman, is because I was able to put myself there. I erased what I was there for, and I put myself. It's like when we were in the Titanic, James even said to us on that day, hey, you got to feel like you were really on the ship, and we did. And basically, Dante's Peak was the same thing. I mean, I actually put myself there and saw things that weren't on the set and put them in my brain to where I was scared every minute of the day on that job because I put myself there, not because the stunts were necessarily dangerous, but because emotionally I had to bring myself there in order to make it real. I don't want to stand out as the guy that just did a stunt. I want to stand out as the guy that was scared for his life and the next thing he fell.
You mentioned Tony Scott a minute ago.
Yeah.
You worked with him on The Fan, so you got Wesley Snipes, you got De Niro doing his little thing there. What was it like working with Tony Scott though?
Well, I've done four Tony Scott movies, and I was very fortunate enough to become his friend, and also that he took me under his wing. He knew I wanted to direct someday, and he taught me everything about trailer moments and about character and about structure of script and what kind of films that I should choose and all that. And Tony was one of those guys. He was a rock climber, and so to keep up with Tony Scott was literally impossible because the man was on the run. He'd pull 24-hour shifts, and to me, he's by far the best filmmaker I've ever worked with in my career. I mean, Man on Fire was something that he's done with cameras and doing with a drama. I mean, that movie is a straight up drama, and you look at it and you feel like you're in this biggest action movie, that you're watching. And Tony Scott was able to pull it off because he was cranking cameras and film cameras and doing things with characters and turning colors to where it was outside the box, but yet you welcomed it. Where Michael Bay does real big colors and they stand out, Tony did it in a way that fit the story.
You mentioned Man on Fire there. That Man on Fire is classed as probably one of the best action films of all time.
Absolutely.
Can you tell me a bit more about your involvement in that?
Yeah, basically that movie and Enemy of the State. I think Enemy of the State was one of the ones I had the most thrill on because I really got to be around Tony 24/7, where Man on Fire was just a crazy thing where people were coming and going to Mexico City, and it was really hard. And I never pictured Man on Fire to be what it was. I really didn't, because of the chaos that was going on the set, even when Tony had it. But Enemy of the State was one of those ones that everything gelled perfectly, and it was just ingenious to watch something that you knew was going to be great. Most of the time we make movies, it's never what we seem, and it's never what we thought it was going to be. But when you are on a movie that is exactly like what you thought, you hit gold.
A couple of other movies that wouldn't necessarily be, how would you put it without making it, I don't know. I'll just say it as it is in my head. Hopefully it comes out right. They wouldn't be as big as the other movies you've done. They're sort of classed as like B movies, but the horror, The Children of the Corn and The Wishmaster. Yeah. What attracted you to them? Were you just fans of the franchises, or?
You know what? I'm a fan. I mean, I look at every film as something the reason why there's genres is because there's such a huge fan base, and to understand them. I mean, it's like when I used to produce for the Sci-Fi Channel, they actually would tell me to dummy it down, Johnny. Our audience is different. It's differently creatively. It's not like what you are used to. And it took me so long to understand that there is such a big audience out there that we don't even understand that there's not one movie out there that's going to fit every audience. And so to try to make a movie these days, you have to try to squeeze all audiences in there. And sometimes to be so smart isn't necessarily the best thing. If you notice that these real smart movies, they do good, but they don't do great. Yeah. The ones that have a little bit of both really blend.
Well, I'll admit, right? Wishmaster, Children of the Corn.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah, I'm gonna say everyone will be like, "Oh, they're cheesy beam." I've got them out in the garage.
Oh, they're awesome, man. Are you kidding me? Anytime someone gets scary, who doesn't want to be in a horror movie? You know,
Wishmaster was so iconic too at the time because it had its killer, like serial killer, the demon, but then it had Jason, Freddy, and Candyman in.
Yeah,
it was a win-win.
Oh God, are you kidding me? And and the set environments are so different on horror movies. I mean, in the set environment, they're just, you feel less money, you feel less of everything, but yet you feel this need to want to scare people 24/7 on these sets, and it's just so amazing to be a part of something, a horror movie. It really is. I enjoyed it. It was one of my first films that I directed, was a horror movie. It was a low budget, but it was something that I just had to do.
Would horror be one of your favorite genres then? Yeah.
Honestly, I'm more of the thriller type of guy, or true story sports movie. That's kind of my thing. I always have a question to find out who people are by asking them, if you had to sit in a room for 24 hours, what movie would you choose? And believe it or not, if you ask people that, you'll get a response that really tells that person who they are.
So what would your movie be?
A Miracle. To me, that movie, I've watched it probably 50 times. You know what, I'll still watch it from beginning to end. And it's because I believe in the underdog. I believe that anyone could do anything, as long as you put your heart and your soul into it. And that's how my career is. I did everything I could I came here alone with $25 in my pocket. And now I've done every career there is in this business, just from hard work.
Definitely need to write a book.
Yeah.
Like your resume and your stories, that's book material.
Thank you.
When we talked about Dante's Peak, you mentioned Titanic.
Yes.
What was it like working on Titanic, and was there much pressure, as that's with James Cameron? So being on a movie, I assume with James Cameron, there would be a high amount of pressure, especially on Titanic.
Yeah, that movie is probably the biggest emotional moment I've had in my life. That movie was really hard. I mean, when we got there, James told us that, you will feel like you're on the ship. I will make sure of that. And we did. I mean, every day was a day that we would go to our hotels in Rosarita and go to the set and not know who was going to go to the hospital that night. Every day there was 2 or 3 guys going to the hospital. I got knocked out twice. I fractured my shoulder. I was the guy in the center of the boat that when Leo was hanging on to the top, I fell and hit the prop and flew off of it. And it was hard because we were working with everyone from around the world. It was the only movie that every country was represented by a stuntman. So there's 10 of us from every country. And it was really cool because it became a war. It became a war between all of us, that we all had to see who was better. And people were getting each other hurt by doing it. And it was crazy. I mean, pretty much by the middle of the show, we walked off and protested the movie because, we were getting so many guys with broken ribs and shoulders that James Cameron said, just get a bunch of monkeys and get them out here if they're going to act this way. And that's when we heard that and we walked off the set. And James came back and apologized to us. But because we knew we were doing something that was legendary, something that was bigger than any of us, that we had to go back. We had to finish what we started. It was like being on the Titanic and getting off halfway through. You just couldn't do it. You had to live it. And I really feel like I lived a moment of being on the Titanic.
I'd say being on something like that, especially, I'm sure with all the backstory you were fed about characters and people there, you could just put yourself in their position and probably felt what they felt.
Yeah, you had to, because the camera was on you so much that you had to act freezing cold. And it was cold, but you had to know that what does someone look like? And every day I'd go in the mirror and look at myself in the mirror and try to find a face and find an emotion that really brought me to where I felt like I knew I was going to die tonight. And that's what it really shows up on film. People don't realize that if you do more with your face and the more with your eyes on film, you can make a lot more mistakes because people aren't paying attention to anything else but your eyes. Once your eyes are dead, then everything that you're doing outside of that is subject to a failure.
When you said about your stunt there, as soon as you described it, I was like, oh, I remember you. You're the guy that made everyone wince.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a crazy one.
To put the tempo back up now to
let's do it.
Sort of action. You worked with the awesome, underrated Jeff Speakman, Land of the Free.
Wow.
I love a bit of Speakman.
I love it.
Super cool. Do you not think that he was one action hero that sort of just got tossed aside?
Well, what I think happens in our industry a lot, and it's very, very sad, is that the foreign market, since it controls a lot of the money coming in, they will take an actor that is a quality actor from America and try to switch him over and just say, just do one of these movies that are smaller, and then sort of like Cuba Gooding Jr. is a good friend of mine, and they did that with Cuba when Wesley Snipes went to jail. They grabbed Cuba, who was a quality actor, and they brought him into that world, and once you go to that world, if you do two of them, you can't get out and you die there. And that's what happens to these guys. And it's sad because they're really talented. And because of what they did from bad producers or bad distribution, really, they wish that it wasn't their career, but it ends up, damaging you.
Another highlight. It's just your resume should just be called highlights because everything highlight. Godzilla 98.
Yeah.
That was badass, man. What was your involvement with that? And once again, how do you prepare for a monster movie? Because you haven't got Godzilla like in the background, so.
Well, I mean, the word big is everything about that kind of movie. I mean, the Godzilla's big, so my action need to be big. And so when there was a gag where I had to do there where I was on the top floor of the stairs and they wanted me to go over the railing to the stairs going down. So it was a good 10-foot drop to cement stairs. And it was freaking brutal. And normally I'd say, okay, well, I'll just roll over this thing and try to protect, just to survive this thing. But when a big Godzilla is hitting the ship, you have to take your mind out of that and go, okay, you'd be flying, Johnny. And so there's a moment that you just got to be tougher than the concrete, and you take 2 steps back instead of taking a step forward and going over it. And you just take it and you dive, and your body all of a sudden knows distinctively what to do in these problems. And I just erased my mind and not realizing how I was going to fall. And I just let my mind take over. And thank God I wasn't injured because I was so psyched and so, ready to get hit by Godzilla that I took it,
Would you come back and do any of the more recent Godzillas if you were given the opportunity?
Well, it's a little hard these days because as I started directing, I used to get hurt, not as stuntman. I got hurt as directing. And so when I did a movie called Drive Angry, as you know, with Nicolas Cage, I broke my neck directing a movie. We went into a brick wall and I went through the windshield. And because I didn't want to leave Nick, I ended up going to the hospital and sneaking out with a neck brace on and staples across my head and snuck out of the hospital at 3 a.m. to be back on the set the next day. And I healed wrong, unfortunately. So I have fusions up and down my spine now and a few other things. So it's It's a little hard for me to get back. I might get paralyzed if I go back, they say.
Okay, and everyone says Jackie Chan's tough.
He is. He's a badass.
Step aside,
He
Jack.
does it in your face.
Now back to Nick Cage.
Yes. That's why I'm here.
Gone in 60 seconds.
Oh.
The stunts, I'm going to assume everything was just car related, right?
No, we had fights, we had high falls, we had pretty much everything on that movie. We had guys getting hit by cranes and stuff like that. It was really, but it was crazy. The script was never finished. I mean, basically, when we started that movie, there was 50 pages, and Dominic Sena, who's a great man, said, "Don't worry about it." And in action, it just said, "See Chuck Macherny and Johnny Martin." Two of us ran it, and basically, we would just design everything that was in that movie. It was cool.
It's a really cool film as well. As you're friends with Nicholas, do you know how far you can push Nick?
I do because I mean Nick. The thing about Nicolas Cage is that Nick knows that there's him and then there's Nicolas Cage, and he knows that he's got to give his audience what they expect out of Nicolas Cage, not so much what Nick has to do. And so he always says, "Johnny, is this a Nick moment? Do you think that Nick Cage would do this?" And he asks that question because his fans care so much about him, and he cares so much about them, that he has to make sure that what he thinks looks good is it what Nick Cage would look good at. And so because Nick is crazier, he would do things a little bit bigger than everyone else. And so that's what the kind of the actual design. Now, as far as a car, forget about it. I mean, Nick and I would go out to tracks and race all his cars, and he was a wheelman. I mean, the guy could perform well. That's why it was really important for me when I saw him driving, that when we'd shoot Nick, I'd say, "Hey guys, wait, let's get Nick to drive the car and let him slide to a 180. That way there we could see it's Nick's face. I want the audience to know that this is Nick behind the wheel, not just some stunt double." And so Nick took a lot of the driving on. So it was really easy. And Nick's so physical anyway, does all his own fights, does all the rehearsing. He's just a true genius of an actor.
Another Nick.
Bring it.
Wind Talkers.
Ooh, Wind Talkers.
It just...
Yeah, that one I'm sad about because, John Woo, finally I got to work with John Woo and Nick together. Forget about it. I mean, after Face Off, I wasn't a part of that, and I was jealous. And so I was really pumped about it. And I started doing some more war movies like A Thin Red Line and this movie. And I love war movies because there's so much that you can bring and so much heart to a dying soldier. And so I made sure that when I took the job, I said, "Listen, just make sure that I get a part next to Nick that I get shot in the head." That's all I wanted. I just wanted to get shot in the head next to Nick as Nick looked at me. And me and him already had that relationship, so he didn't know I was on the show. And I showed up, and sure enough, I was the guy next to him getting shot in the head. And so it was kind of a cool little funny moment that me and him shared together.
Oh, yes, a follow-up question to that. What was John Woo like? Would he let you have free reign for the stunts, or would he be very much in control of everything?
Well, he is the kind of director that expects a certain look, but doesn't explain to you what he expects. And I knew that he wasn't happy with a lot of the stunt guys, and it's because everyone was being very stunty. And even though everyone thought because he comes from the Asian world that everything over the top is what he would want, but he's the opposite. He wants reality brought to it. He doesn't mind if you do a flip over, but you better show it in your eyes that it caused you to do that. And so when I did it, I went from flying through a window, getting shot in the head, to where I decided to, and everyone thought I was going to do it. Instead, what I did for him, because I knew he wasn't happy, was I just got shot in the head and I stayed there frozen in air for a while and then dropped flat on my face. And it was the stunt coordinator came up yelling at me because he said, "You're supposed to fly back." I said, "I know." And it ended up, John Woo said it was the best killing he had on the movie. So it was kind of cool.
Another big franchise you're a part of in game form and movie form is The Matrix. Mm. What was your input to the whole sort of two entries you're in?
Well, I mean, because I've done a lot of wheel work and car work, that was what I was called for, is to do the Matrix car work on the freeway. And then meanwhile, after I got done with that, I doubled Keanu in the game. So I was him in the game with all the balls and doing falls and all that. So if you play the game and you kill Keanu, you're pretty much killing me on that game. But I mean, the freeway scene was one of the best freeway scenes I've ever been a part of. I thought it was ingenious with the bike and everything else. And David Ellis, who's passed away, great second unit director. It was one of his last films I got to do with him, so it was an honor.
Was it not intense filming car scenes? Because it feels like if you're doing a fight scene, like if you clip someone in the jaw, you're like, oh, get up. If you clip someone in a car, like clip another car, that could be you flipped and.
Well, on that movie, it was different because it was directed by a stuntman, stunt coordinator, stuntman. All the stuntmen were on the set, and pretty much it was jokes that we kept playing on each other. And we were so excited to find out if someone found something in their car that shouldn't be there. And maybe we fucked around a little too much, but it ended up being one of the funnest shoots because I'll tell you, I've never seen so many bad pranks in my life on the movie than that movie.
You're also involved in Die Hard
Yeah.
as I think it was a stunt double,
Yeah.
and you done the stunts. What was it like working on Die Hard?
You know what? That movie, I'm a big fan of movies. I mean, and Die Hard was one of those ones, and Lethal Weapon that I've probably seen 20 times each. I just love those movies. And it was one of those things that I was sitting at home and realized, oh my God, I haven't been in a Die Hard. So I called up the guy who was directing it, and I said, hey, can I get on the show tomorrow maybe? And he said, come on out. So I got to work a few days on it, and it was just something I just wanted to put on I wanted to be able to know that I was a part of Die Hard. So I didn't do really anything cool, I mean, I fell a few times and rode helicopters and did a few stuff like that, but it wasn't anything that I could say that was my best stunt work, but I was on Die Hard.
And you also worked with Bruce on Armageddon as well with Michael Bay. Did you have much to do on that?
I got to get killed a lot, with all the bombings of around the world. And so I would just be on green screen, getting thrown around like crazy. But that was a movie that I knew right out of the gate was going to be one of the most special movies of the year. And it is, to me, it's probably in my top 5 of my favorite movies I've ever done.
What was it like if you ever got to work with Bruce? There's some people who say, there's some mixed reports out there.
You know what? Everyone gets confused by what someone is by how they react on one moment. And that's so wrong of everyone. I mean, what if you were followed by 1 million of people and told and written about you that were all false lies? I mean, Bruce is a strong man. The problem is that you got a weaker actor that has a weaker soul. Yeah, he could put up with it more, and he comes off to everyone as a nice guy. But when you got a strong soul and a man that speaks his piece, all of a sudden he becomes a jerk to people because he speaks his piece. Bruce Willis is one of those guys that, I admire him. You know what? He's put up with a lot of crap. And for a guy that's put up with that much crap and that much people saying stuff about him, he's still a classy guy. And you know what? We are very lucky. I mean, we're around a time where we have legendaries. We got the Humphrey Bogarts of our time. These guys are legendary. The top 5 guys, Stallone and Arnold and Bruce Willis, are iconic. And you got to expect that they're human.
You mentioned Bruce Willis, Arnold, Stallone. So you know what my next question is, didn't you?
Bring it.
The Expendables.
Oh, Expendables. Yeah, I got to be a part of that.
Yeah, I love it. Can you see that?
Hey, right on. Well, here my best moment on that is Stallone saying that he thought that I was too much of a wop to be in this movie. So I'm like, wait a minute, he's Italian and I'm Portuguese. I'm not even Italian. So it was kind of funny, and so he pulled me out of my acting role I had in the movie, and then the producer slid me back in and slide in and catch it. So I got to do my role anyway. But yeah, to be a part of all those guys, it was like it was quite crazy. But it was really controlled. I can't believe how much of respect every one of those actors had for Sylvester Stallone. He ran that show. It was his, and people just followed him. Probably tighter ship than any movie I've ever been on was that movie with all those egos. He
broke his neck or something, didn't he? Chipped his or something.
He had a lot of problems on that show. He popped a muscle out of his chest on that movie. The problem is he works out so much that and what he does physically and the way he sleeps, he works all the time. You are prone to these things to happen. Like Tom Cruise is iconic, and what he does is incredible. But how he does it is that he is a constant trainer. He perfections everything he does, where Stallone is a tough motherfucker. And so he He pretty much does it because he's tough.
That's probably like the quote of the day. Stallone's a tough motherfucker.
Yeah, yeah, he is.
Out of all of the Expendables together,
Yeah.
who would be your favorite as an action hero?
Well, come on. I had Rocky Balboa on my set. How can I choose anybody else than Rocky Balboa? So forget about it.
And right back to Nick Cage.
Yeah.
So, Drive Angry, you are second unit director and stunt coordinator.
Yeah.
What does that involve?
Well, that was a movie that when I heard about it and Nick was going to be there, and I really want to take care of Nick and make sure that he's taken care of and always have, that I called the financier up and I said, I really need to be on this movie and I want to be on it. And so Patrick, the director, me and him met and I told him my vision and I told him I know exactly what Nick needs and the cars that he needs. Because me and Nick would go out and look for cars all the time and he would buy cars and get my advice on cars that he would buy. And I would tell him, don't you dare buy that car. Like he bought a truck on that movie that was just a crazy hot rod that you couldn't even drive at 20 feet without feeling like you were going to lose it. And he bought it and he was going to put a child seat in for his kid. I'm like, no, sell it right now. He goes, I just paid $80,000. I go, sell it. And so, we were doing that, but to be a part of that movie was crazy because you got a devil, a guy from hell. I mean, that allowed you to do whatever you wanted. So we came up with this thing. I said, what if we lit 25 guys on fire and I jumped this car and he hits them all with the car, and because you're able to go that far of unbelievability. And I just thought it was really cool to do things, but yet I wanted to keep a 70s theme in this movie. It was very important that me and Patrick would talk about it. I said, there's something about the old Duel movie with Spielberg that fits really well with Drive Angry. It shouldn't be your Fast and Furious Drive Angry. It should be more, the camera should allow the cars to do what they do. That's why you pick a Charger. It's why you pick a Chevelle, and all that stuff. The cars are the characters. So if you want to whip pan and do all that, then it becomes about camera work. And let's make this thing about the cars and about the character. And that's what we did.
Was it ever set to be a sequel? It seems like something that you could have sequeled.
Yeah. What's sad is that movie turned into be a cult film, and it deserved every. If you watch that movie, I'm sorry, no one can say they don't enjoy it. It's just a fun movie. Don't take it serious. It's just fun, but because it just wasn't received right. It was a bad timing. It came out and it didn't do well in the box office, but it's still playing. It's one of my movies that's playing all over the place because people do appreciate it. It's just that people want to bash it because now when a movie turns into a cult film, what happens is that it's horrible at the time. 10 years later, it's genius. But most of the time, cult films don't have actors in it that And so, but with Nick, because Nick does so many movies and they want to have a reason to bash him, they won't allow this movie to become a true cult film. And even though it truly is, but they just won't allow it because, Nick's gotten so much. And Nick is the only actor out there that could survive what he's survived. I mean, look at Travolta, look at Bruce Willis, look at all these actors that tried hard as hell to keep their name and to keep the positive light with their fan base. And Nick is loved and cherished by everyone. I mean, we've got people that come into my set when I was directing his movie with him, The Vengeance, a Love Story. We had people coming to me and they'd have tattoos of Nick all over their body. And they're like, we just need to be in this movie, please. And Nick said, what was that about? And I said, this guy's got a tattoo on his calf on you. He goes, I got to see it. So we called up the guy, we'd go to his house and we saw it. And he goes, Johnny, you got to put him in the movie. Okay. So that's how cool Nick is to his fans.
Man, I love Drive Angry.
I do too. It's such an awesome movie.
I can tell you a memory of Drive Angry. When everyone says Drive Angry, the moment I have is I think it was a Saturday or Sunday morning. It was 9 o'clock. It was the night after a storm. It was raining. Got some crazy shit left over for breakfast. And me and my girlfriend at the time watched Drive Angry, just lying in bed. It was badass. And now we're married, so.
Right on. I gotta tell Nick that.
So yeah, I love Drive Angry. I'm actually thinking I might have to see if you want to do another way setup or something, because I'm thinking of doing a whole Nick Cage marathon. Once we're done here, I'll send you a picture of what I've got sort of planned. I think it will blow your mind. You'll love it.
I love it. Please. Please do.
So we're going to dabble quickly back into your horror world.
Okay.
You weren't dumb. You got Leatherface on the rip for Texas Chainsaw.
Hey.
Tell me about that.
Well, that was kind of as a filmmaker, it was very hard because I had to replace the director at times. So I got called in. Didn't even have a job when it started on the show, but they called me in because the director was 2 weeks behind on 2 week shoot, pretty much already. And so I came in and I took over first unit on a lot of the stuff and second unit. So I was covering both units and directing them all. And it was really cool because we did something a little bit different in that movie with Leatherface. And I shot most of the Leatherface scenes in the movie, which was really kind of cool because they didn't have that tough guy playing that character. Instead, it was more of a gentler giant playing it. And so it made it go back to the original, which I was a huge fan of Toby's film. And I met Toby and I told him, well, why did you make him like a baby Huey? You know what? Because now they've turned him into this monster and this Jason kind of character. I go, but I miss that baby Huey. And he goes, it has to be a baby Huey because you got to feel sorry for this guy. It's not his fault, and there's more emotion coming from him than if you have a guy that's tough, because then you don't care about him anymore. And he was right, and that's what we did on that movie. It was very important that we saw his gentle touching of things and everything else. And then when you saw his anger, it was out of a baby having a temper tantrum. And that's how I looked at it when I was shooting him.
It was like, I always thought, I don't know, people would say me wrong for seeing it the way I did, but like, Leatherface wasn't really the villain. People basically broke into his house and he was defending his house. And at the end, he was essentially just defending his family.
Yeah, they were white trash that really didn't know how to exist around people of the upper class. And these people came into their house and they didn't know what to do but grab the gun that was in the corner, pretty much. But they did have a sick family.
Yeah, there was a touch of that.
Yeah, which was cool. We got to use that scene in the movie. In the one that I did, I directed all the stuff that fit in with Toby, so it was an honor for me to be able to direct that scene of being at the house with the house burning and all that tied into his scene 30 years before.
I take it, just like Drive Angry, it was a cold film as well, was it?
Cold?
Yeah, like it just didn't get picked up again.
Oh yeah, it did. It got picked up by Millennium. Did another one that just went straight to video. That movie took #1 in the office. I mean, in the box office, which was great. But the problem is that everyone started doing them, and famous directors started doing them. I mean, I think that in a 10-year period, there's 5 of them. So yeah. I think that everyone just got beat up and worn out by it, and it's sad because the Leatherface that went on after us didn't do any numbers.
Then you returned to some action. Oh, it could have been before. Confused on my dates right now, but you went to action. You done a cool action with Travolta. You brought him back in I Am Wrath.
Yeah,
man, that was bad. You brought Travolta back.
I thought, I felt like that. John is one of those guys. If you like Nick, you should have a podcast with John. If you got to meet John, he's just as sweet and approachable as Nick is. And that's I've my first start in as a coordinator was working for John's brother Joey, and Joey was a director, and I did all his movies, and so I got to meet all of John's family, and so John knew who I was and all that, and it was very important to me that John came off looking really good, and I knew where John's career was going, like Nick's was at the time, and I just felt so bad because, like I said, we only have so many of these iconic actors that are around that will be legendary. People won't remember half the actors 20 years from now, but they'll always remember John Travolta and Nick Cage.
Yeah, hence Face Off.
Yeah, freak. Everything. And now John, that's the difference between John and Nick is that Nick can survive what people think is a bad movie. Not that it is a bad movie, but what people think it is, where John can't survive that as much. People are ready to put a Rotten Tomato, squashed tomato on him before the movie ever comes out and people see it.
That's not fair.
No, and I'm glad that I Am Wrath did, because I was nervous about it. But I mean, we put in a lot of hours. We recut that movie 3 times because I was one of the producers on it. And so basically, we let Chuck do his cut, and then we went back in and recut and made it a little bit more actiony.
Oh yes. What was it? You answered that question.
Uh,
You directed and produced a movie called Hangman
yeah,
with Al Pacino.
yeah.
Um, were you afraid that movie would sort of get typecast or compared to Seven?
Yeah, I really was. I tried to make this movie a little bit more commercial looking with the colors and not be so dark as Seven, because I was in Seven itself too. I was on Seven every day, and to be on that set, I knew right when I took on Hangman that I could never be compared, especially with the budgets. And that's what's sad about our industry, is that people will give you a grade on your budgets and your days that you shoot. Where Seven, we did 62 days of shooting, and on Hangman, I got 21 days. So to try to do an Al Pacino movie in 20 days, where he's in the movie every single day, is very, very hard, because it doesn't allow you to put in a lot of style. You just got to worry about trying to put the script on on film, and I tried to do whatever I can by working all my days off and everything else to make the film better. But I knew that I couldn't. I didn't want to go as dark as Seven, because I didn't have the budget or the money or the days to turn it into that. So I tried to make it a little bit more commercial, like an everyday cop, an everyday life of a cop, of what would happen.
What was it like working with Al Pacino?
Oh man, I love Nick Cage to death, but Nick is like a brother, and Al is like a dad. I mean, Al treated me like a son, and basically, the thing that's so great about him, if you ever watch his movies, don't watch what he's doing. Watch the smallest things. And this is where Al Pacino's genius. He asked me, this one character said, "Hello, sir." That was her only line in the whole movie, the only time you're seen in the movie. And he said, "Well, Johnny, what's her backstory? Is her family divorced? Is she got a lot of money? Does she live alone? Does she even have a boyfriend? And Johnny, what's the saddest thing that ever happened in her life? I mean, what is she struggling with?" And I'm like, holy shit. And I'm like, okay. I just start creating this character. Yeah, she's from a divorced family now. She has no money. She's just doing this job, and she's hoping to become a cop someday. He goes, okay. Sure enough, I say action. Al comes in. He puts his hand on. She goes, "Hello, sir." He puts his hand on his shoulder, and he smiles at her for 2 seconds and walks away. And it was genius. It was like everything I told him was in that one little touch of his shoulder, and how he looked at her. He made that one line character that you would never even have seen in the movie. He made her come to life. And that's how great Al Pacino was.
It was such a good movie. We found it on, I think it was Netflix.
Yeah.
Found it on and watched it, and we loved it. It was
Oh,
really
thank
good.
you so much. Thank you. You know, it's so hard to do these movies like with Nick and Al, because no matter what you do, these critics are going to pan you no matter what you make out of them. And they don't care how much money you have. They don't care anything. And it's sad, because we're doing our best. And I think that we're coming up with something that's even more than what we have the money for.
There's always the critics out there, though, that are just out to slam the movie.
Yeah, that one was hard for me, because I almost quit the industry, because it gets to your heart so bad that I really thought me and Al did something special. And to have them come back, it hurt me more than I ever could imagine. I didn't want to ever touch a movie right then. And then I jumped in my next movie with a year and a half later. So
I really want to ask you about USS Indianapolis and Vengeance that you directed, but
yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you, haven't seen them, but they're on my Nick project, so I don't want to ask you about them and spoil them for myself.
Okay.
That's why I need
Good.
to get back in touch with you.
Thank you.
Vengeance does look good from the synopsis on the back of the cover, anyway. Um,
Well, I mean, here that one, Nick Cage was supposed to direct it. I mean,
is that right?
he was all set to direct it, and I was producing the film. And Nick and I, Nick was so busy, and he said, "Hey, can you go scouting for me?" And I'd say, "Yeah, don't worry, I'll do shot list." And me and him were collaborating so well together. And then something happened to our financing. We had to push a week, which made me have to cut the budget and remove 3 days of shooting. And Nick said, "I don't want to shoot a movie in 20 days, Johnny." He goes, "I don't want to." And I said, "Well, Nick, what are we going to do? We're shooting in 3 days." He says, "Well, you direct it." And I go, "It's about rape, and I don't like rape movies, but I was willing to produce it. I don't know if I want to do it." And I thought about it, and then sure enough, I ended up taking 2 days before we were ready to shoot. I took it over as a director.
You touched upon it there, but how did you and Nick become so close? Was it just working together and then just gelling?
Yeah, you know what is that I've always been good around people, and Nick, I'd be honest with you, I'm gone at 60. I felt sorry for him. I felt sorry for him because, you know, I would he would be smiling, and then all of a sudden a bunch of people would come by and he'd put his head down. And I finally went up to him. I go, Nick, why? I go, what was wrong? He goes, nothing. He goes, it's just that some people don't know how to talk to me. And he goes, I just wish they'd just talk. And people just want to say, oh, you were great in this, and they leave staring at me, not knowing what to say next. And it's so uncomfortable for me. I just wish it was normal. And I said, oh my God. And so I said, from that point on, and I've done what, 6, 7 movies with him, I'd always go up to him and I'd just sit with him. I'd say, dude, you got to look at this car. And we just catch each other by cars and stories, and then we talk about doing a film together and go to some island and go see these tribes and just crazy stuff. He knew I was nuts, and I know he's nuts, and our nuts together, we wanted to do something that would risk our lives and do a movie that if he's listening, he'd know exactly what I'm talking about. He had a dream about a movie about the crystal on an iPhone, but if you go there, you could get killed by this tribe that protects the caves, and he wanted me and him to go there and shoot it, and we almost did, and it would have probably killed us, but it was nuts.
Your filmography, as I've said like 8 times now, is outstanding.
Thank you.
Man, you've worked with every star people could dream of. You've got De Niro, you've got Al Pacino, you've got Stallone, you've got the whole Expendables. That's just to say the least. You've got The Rock, Wesley Snipes, yeah, Nick Cage, John Travolta, just name it. You know, there's probably Sean Connery, Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah.
Is there anyone you haven't worked with that you would like to work with?
It's not really that I'd like. I mean, I have to always go back to this one guy, and I'm the biggest Tom Cruise fan, and I'm the biggest Tom Cruise fan because I admire his filmmaking ability. I think he's the truest filmmaker of any actor alive and has ever been alive. And I worked with him on an Interview with the Vampire. So your question is, I'm cheating it a little bit, but I was still green in the business, and I just admired him so much that I want one more chance at that. I never got a second chance working with Tom Cruise, and I need that. So I hope that one day one of my films strike gold as a director, and if I could do that, I pretty much will retire if I could direct Tom Cruise in a movie.
You want to do stunts for him?
No, I'm done doing. You know what? Stunts was just a means to become a filmmaker. I never was really thinking I'd be doing stunts my whole life, but I got to meet Tony Scott and all these great directors that led me to be a great producer. I've produced 28 films now, and I've directed now 5 films now. And because of my stunt career, it led me to becoming a great filmmaker.
What would your favorite Tom Cruise movie be?
Oh God, Jerry Maguire and Days of Thunder.
Oh, Days of Thunder.
Yeah, because I think the acting in Jerry Maguire was brilliant. I think that he brought me to so many highs and lows in that movie, and I think the arcs are just amazing. And Days of Thunder, hell, it's Tony Scott, hell, it's race cars, and it's freaking Tom Cruise. How can you not love any of those 3?
The new Top Gun looks pretty good, doesn't it?
It does, and Tom's just takes everything to the next level. I mean, you had to have gone to space, you had to have gone through a certain speed, and now he's going to shoot in outer space, and the way. I mean, he would not allow an actor to go on that set unless they went Mach speed, and so it's freaking crazy. Can't wait for that one.
So, in your career, what would be the most dangerous or challenging stunt that you've had to face?
That's easy. That would be the Titanic. I mean, Titanic, it wasn't one stunt. It was survival every day. I mean, going down that poop deck, 100 yards down, flying down with 50 people on, against a bar, and knowing that you're going to run into all of them. And you know that with your foot or someone else's foot, it's going to come and break your ribs at any time. It was just so scary. I mean, when they would call rolling, you could see every stuntman just taking a deep breath in to try to wipe off all the cobwebs to try to do this thing, because we knew that someone was going to the hospital after every take. And that's when it gets to be really, really scary, when you can't even plan to be safe. It's just because whatever you plan for, someone else isn't. So it was scary, and that's why it's an emotional movie for me. It was very hard for me to watch that movie because I remember what I had to live through.
What would be the most fun you've had on a set? What movie would be the one you've had the most fun?
That would probably be any Tony Scott movie, but it would be probably Enemy of the State. I mean, because all the guys on that thing, we all partied together like crazy, and then there was great action in that movie, and Tony was in such a great mood, and it was just such a really cool thing. And working in Washington D.C. and just doing some really fun stuff.
So would you prefer doing stunts or directing movies?
Well, the answer to that question is that doing stunts was easy. Every day I'd grab a bag and just go out there and wait for them to call me to the set and wreck my body, and it was fun, and it didn't hurt for some reason. It was easy, but I didn't feel like a filmmaker. I felt like a guy that was playing. And so as a director, it's very stressful. It's probably shaved years off my life to become a director because you worry so much and you panic so much, and there's so much inside you that it's the most miserable feeling that you could have. But once you've had it, you can't go down anymore. You have to feed that. You got to feel like it's like a stunt. It's like I needed to feel fear. I needed, every time I went to the set, I wanted to feel fear because the adrenaline rush was just amazing. Well, now my adrenaline rush is being able to see if I could pull off a movie and make this movie and make these actors that I used to respect so much and be scared of. Now I got to tell them what I want. And I don't think I could ever, I'm trying to go back. I'm trying to go back to producing. I just produced a movie 2 weeks ago, and it just wasn't the same. I think that I'm meant to end my career as a director.
Well, I can't even like try to imagine what it feels like. If you put your heart and soul into a movie, and then you read the first couple of reviews or whatnot, and then they pan it. Like, I'm sure that's like just getting punched in the face repeatedly, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I lost my career on Hangman, believe it or not, because of that reason. Is that I was so in the dump, and I just stayed in my room, in my dark room, and I was devastated by what they said. And the financier got mad at me because I wouldn't return his calls, and he dumped me because of that, because I just didn't want to talk to anyone. And that's why my newest movie that's coming out next month is called Alone. And that movie is a script that I got myself. I raised the money myself in Malaysia. I produced the movie. I did everything in that movie, and I wanted to do it my way. And I figured, you know what? If I'm going to do this one more time, I'm going to do it my way. No one's going to tell me what I have to do. And so pretty much I did all on my own. And now Lionsgate loves the movie, and they're going to come out with it pretty big.
Is that this like zombie one with Teen Wolf fella? I can't even
Yeah, Tyler Posey. Yeah, Tyler Posey.
That's it. I was close,
Yeah.
Teen Wolf.
Everyone calls it Team Wolf. And you know what? It's zombies. It's like, like you're making a zombie movie. I'm like, I'm not making a zombie movie. I'm making a screamer movie. These people are still alive, and they scream out the last words that they said before they got killed. I go, they're screamers, and they're still alive. They're not zombies. And they're like, and I gave up because it's all over the press now. It's a zombie movie. I'm like, okay, fine, let's go for it.
I was going to ask you. It was meant to be a while back, but I skipped it in my muddle of notes.
Yeah.
You worked on Snitch with Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
What was it like? Because Dwayne's been so cool.
Oh, he's Dwayne is a filmmaker. He understands the importance of how much fun you should have on a set. And even when people are screwing up, he'll find a way to make a joke out of it. So, Ricky Waugh, who's a director, who's a stuntman too, me and him known each other forever. So it was really fun because The Rock, being a wrestler, loves stuntmen. Like he's producing this thing. My buddy just jumped the Snake River, and The Rock came aboard to produce it just because he wanted to support it. So The Rock's awesome.
He seems like a cool dude.
Yeah.
So, in your career, after the Screamer movie, not Zombie,
Yeah, there you go.
What's next for you?
I'm looking at scripts now. I got a few offers. I got 4 offers to direct, but the problem is everyone wants to turn me into an action director, and I've been there, done that, and I love action as long as it fits the character's emotion and it's driving the story. Like if someone asked me to do Fast and Furious, I'd be nuts not to take it. but I don't want that movie because it's when the cars are the star and not the character. It's like Bourne Identity was genius because 80% of it was about Matt Damon's emotion of what led you to the action outside. His head turning to look drove the camera outside to look. And that's the kind of films that I look for, are movies that the action doesn't stand out on its own, that you don't see a car flip in the air. You see, oh my God, that character is going to die in that car. That's the kind of the action I want to shoot. And so I'm looking at this movie called Borderline now that I really dig. It's all in the snow. I've never shot fully in the snow like this, but it's something that's very interesting. And I may have to go to Romania, where I told myself I'd never go there again. But it's one of those movies that I think I could do something really cool with it. And I think being in the snow could be something I haven't done yet.
Out of curiosity, you picked the question. Why would you never go to Romania again?
Well, I mean, because I spent a lot of time there producing, like in Bulgaria and all that. And it's because, the older you get, I used to think that I'd die on a set. And then when my parents got older and my kids are getting older, it's harder for me to be in a place that takes 24 hours to get home to them. I lost my grandmother and my grandfather to being on location, and I wasn't there to say goodbye to them. And I am afraid of that happening again. So I don't want to go anywhere that I can't get home in the same day.
3,000 miles to Graceland. Did you double Kurt Russell?
Bitchin'. I couldn't wait. Look, that was another one of those movies that I said, it's Kurt Russell. I got to get on this movie. I called my buddy up, dude, you got to get me on it. So we went to Vegas, and I got to see Kurt Russell in an Elvis outfit, which I'm a diehard Elvis fan. So to me, it was like the best of both worlds. So I got to spend a few weeks on that show. But no, I didn't double him. But here, my buddy John Casino, he used to be his double, and John's a good guy and a good heart. So I'd never try to take that away from him. But John was a prick. I would have.
Well, that's all my questions done.
Right.
Man, it was great. It was great speaking to you.
Very nice meeting you, man. Very nice.